What if your town declared independence before the actual Declaration of Independence? Well, today we sit down with a local historian to talk about Yarmouth's forgotten revolutionary story. It's a story 250 years in the making, and it's a story you may have never heard about. Welcome, Bob Kelley, the president of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth. It's great to have you here on the Your Yarmouth podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Lori, and it's a real privilege to be here.
Well, before we dive into the Legacy of Liberty event that's happening on June 20th, tell me a little bit about you and how you became a historian. Did you always like history as a kid?
Well, if you had asked me that as a kid, I would have said no. History wasn't one of my greatest subjects. And although my family has had tremendous history here on the Cape, my father never talked about it. So I was a corporate director for the Slim Fast Foods Company for 20 years and vice president of Steinworld Incorporated, furniture company that manufactured in Southeast Asia for 10. And it was after that, I've also been involved in the martial arts for 30 years. And then when I had certain problems physically, I started looking at family history. And that's when I actually got started, somewhere around 2014, 2015.
Well, we're glad you did. I'm glad to have you. How did you uncover this story about Yarmouth that a lot of people don't know about?
Well, it really all began in 2020. Actually, about 2.5 years ago, I visited the Dennis Yarmouth Revolutionary War Recognition Committee. They had been meeting since before COVID in 2020, and then COVID hit, and they kept meeting, but not much happened during those years. So about 2.5 years ago, I went to see what was going on. I was actually induced to go because after becoming president of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth and being a Yarmouth commissioner, historic commissioner, I was being asked, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm not sure what's been done before me. So I went to visit the committee who had done whatever work was being done and discovered that the town of Dennis had a whole litany of things that were going on with dates and everything, and Yarmouth had literally nothing going on. And so we talked about work that people had done, and there had been a tremendous amount of research done by two men, Jack Duggan and David Schaefer. Independently, were doing Revolutionary Soldiers from Yarmouth, both independently, and they were doing it in such a way that it was all primary source of information, and that's the only way to do it. So we didn't know how many people had actually participated in the revolution because those two works were independent, and so. And my first day there, I asked, well, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to do a book? Are we going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to, take all this information and do what? And so there was some apprehension. Everyone, guards the work that they do.
Sure.
But we got to a point where we merged the two databases and eventually came up with the 447 people.
And what did that feel like when you heard there were 447 men who served?
Yeah, well, that was a startling figure to me. And being the researcher that I am, I went in to look at the 1790 census, which was the first census of the United States. And in the town of Yarmouth, there were 561 males.
I was going to ask how many,
of the age 16 and older. Just taking the 447 men, that's almost 70% of the male population over the age of 16.
Yep.
There are many, according to David and Jack, there are many more men that haven't been validated. In other words, they didn't see the name
Yep.
Yarmouth besides the man's name, but that man's name appears in Yarmouth. But we couldn't put him on the monument because we couldn't prove it. We also couldn't, Yarmouth was a seafaring town, and so there were a lot of privateers.
Yep.
And the privateers didn't have the muster rolls and the documentation that the militia and the Minutemen had. So that number of 447 is low.
Yeah, there'll be more. There's probably more that we'll
probably
never
are
know
more.
about. So because that number is so big, and you said that the town was relatively small, that leaves the women. Do we know anything about the women that and what they went through while their husbands and loved ones were serving?
Yeah, there's little written about the women.
Yeah.
But I can tell you with the male population, as much of the male population in Yarmouth that participated on different campaigns, it must have been just a terrible hardship
Yeah.
on the women.
To keep it keep it together.
And we'll talk a little bit about this when we'll talk about the meaning of the monument. But if you were a farmer, and you went off to war,
Yeah.
your wife was the farmer
Yep.
and the housekeeper and had to keep food on the table, which was scarce during the Revolution.
To begin with. Yeah.
Right. So it was, I don't think we can even think about how much hardship it was. But with that many men gone, you would think that these families would band together to survive.
What makes this story so unique? Because they declared independence before the actual Declaration of Independence. Can you explain that a little bit?
Right. Well, I have to say that people don't know about this. I think it's just lost history.
Yeah.
It's written about in Deo's History of Barnstable County and in Swift's History of Yarmouth, but not everybody reads those books.
Sure.
What surprised me was that not only did Yarmouth, the Boston, the Massachusetts court sent out a proclamation, and not a proclamation, but an inquiry, wanting to know which colonies were going to support the separation from Great Britain. And only Yarmouth in the entire state of Massachusetts responded, and they responded on June
Why do you think
20th.
that is?
Well, it certainly elevates the issues that the British were bestowing on the colonies. Yarmouth was particularly in tune. It was a hub of the Sons of Liberty, and as such, there was just a heightened awareness. I really don't know why Yarmouth was the only one to.
Yeah.
Not only didn't other towns declare, they didn't respond. So I think that's.
I don't think anybody really knows this story. It's pretty fascinating.
It is.
You probably don't know the answer to this question. So we know that 447 soldiers served. Do we know how many of those lost their lives? Was anyone ever, able to come back to their families, or?
So what the researchers did was on the monument, the surname is listed in alphabetical order,
Okay.
followed by the first name, followed by the death date. I believe there are 13 Yarmouth participants in the Revolution that died in service.
Okay.
Okay, some of them at Valley Forge.
Yeah. I thought that would have been higher, honestly.
Nope.
And all of these soldiers, all of these men who served are buried here.
No, Many of them moved away from the Cape after
Okay.
the war, so we don't even know their death date.
Okay.
But if they died in service, there's a little star next to their name on the monument.
Okay. Any emotional stories or anything inspirational that you have uncovered during this process?
There's a very unlikely story that is quite unique to Yarmouth. So Yarmouth had let me start. On May 10th, 1773, Parliament passed the Tea Act, which ultimately ended up in the Boston Tea Party. And from that, towns created tea committees that would enforce the embargo. So they were very much against, allowing tea into the country.
Okay.
And this is where, like the Sons of Liberty would monitor merchants and supply chains to make sure that tea wasn't coming in. Well, this birthright Quaker, Abner Kroll, was on the tea committee. As it turns out, if you were on the tea committee, you were considered as a participant in the revolution, okay, which would have been unheard of for a birthright Quaker. So that's what makes this story so unique. So he was on the tea committee. He was a very poor fisherman. He married a woman named Sarah O'Kelley, and they were both from West Ennis. They were both birthright Quakers. And they had 6 children. And their children were a wide range of ages, but the Yarmouth Friends meeting was concerned about the children, that Abner and Sarah weren't able to maintain them. So the men's meeting and the women's meeting met, and they sent committees, clearness committees, out to meet with Abner and Sarah independently. And their report back to the monthly meeting was that, or the Yarmouth meeting, was that they were unable to maintain their children. So they bound the children out. They took the children away from them, gave them to Sarah's father, Eliezer O'Kelley of West Ennis. And that was pretty common. The Quakers were a closed community, so they did stuff like this. They didn't.
So on the basis of what? Why would that happen?
It was being noticed that the children were malnourished,
Okay.
or whatever, or some indication of that. And so it was uncommon. It was not uncommon for a Quaker family to have multiple families living with them. Life was pretty hard if the husband died for some reason or was lost at sea. A family and a widow couldn't survive.
Yeah.
And so the Quakers would take them in. And anyhow, a year later, after this separation, Sarah dies, and Abner starts cohorting with a woman named Ruth Nickerson from Chatham, who was not a Quaker.
Oh dear.
The meeting gets a hold of this, and they meet in clearness with Abner, and they tell him, if you don't stop cohorting with this woman, we're going to disown you. Well, Abner married Ruth Nickerson and was disowned by the meeting. Ruth gets pregnant. Abner goes fishing off Bass River out into the Sound, gets picked up by a British frigate, gets put onto the HMS Grand Duke, and is taken to Newport Harbor. He is on there about 3 weeks. He gets sick. He's sick for about a week and dies on the ship. And he's buried on some island around Newport Harbor. We don't know where. The interesting part of this end of the story is that Ruth gives birth to a son named Simeon Kroll. Now, Simeon Kroll and his half-brother, Sylvanus Kroll, are basically the people that settled Bass River Village. Sylvanus Kroll built an ocean pier He built a pier out in the middle of the ocean, and we're in a place that was called Bass River Harbor, adjacent to the West Ennis Beach. And Simeon Kroll had 900,000 superficial feet of salt works, 2 salt mills, and a salt house. And he was the founder of the Bass River Baptist Church and its first minister for many years. So between the two of them, so these were the children of Abner.
It's an incredible story. I mean, there's so many stories in Yarmouth, and you must just be like this. You must have this just box of knowledge, and I really want to encourage people to really tap into that if they want to know the history. Let's get right to the event now.
Okay.
The Legacy of Liberty event, which is going to be June 20th.
Sure.
From 10 to 3 at Fred's Thatcher Park. What are you expecting from that day?
Well, we're not quite sure what to expect. We could get anywhere from 300 people to 1,000.
Yeah.
So the event is both at Thatcher Park, or the playground, and also the ancient cemetery, which is 4/10 of a mile right down Old Church Street. Basically what we are encouraging people to park at the new middle school on Station Avenue. There will be no parking anywhere close to Thatcher Park or the cemetery. And we have 4 buses and a special needs bus, which will begin shuttling at 8 o'clock in the morning and will run till 4 p.m. So if anyone's planning to park near Thatcher Park, there will be about a dozen police monitoring traffic, and you won't be able to. There's going to be a 40 by 80 tent set up. Half of it will be for seating in the cemetery, and the other half for demonstrators. And the reason we got this big tent is in case there's some inclement weather. The demonstrators will have some place to be under. There will be representation from the local Scouts, Troop 50 for the boys and 150 for the girls. The Bristol Drum and Fife will be here. The Minutemen from Yarmouth.
It's a lot of reenactments and
The Minutemen from Yarmouth, Minutemen and militia from Wareham will have an encampment near 6A on the park. There will be an Eagle Scout project going on adjacent to them for colonial toys. We'll have a number of demonstrators, and the monument. The ceremony will start at 10, and it should last an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. At which time the Bristol Drum and Fife will lead the Scouts with the flags, and then the militia and the rest of the crowd to the ancient cemetery. That ceremony should start about noon. There will be gun salutes at both the park and the cemetery. At the cemetery, there will be living interpreters, at least at a dozen stones, and they will give the history of the soldier and or his wife and or children there. And the town is making a 60-plus page commemorative pamphlet outlining the bios of all 53 men that are interred at Ancient Cemetery.
That's a big day.
And then when that's done...
You've got the monument.
Well, the monument, right. So when that's done, people can at random... First of all, the living interpreters, they're random. You can go up. There's no order to any of it. And when you're finished, you just walk back to the park. There'll be food trucks, porta potties at both places, food trucks. The drum and fife will be playing, and there will be demonstrators. So we have candle maker, we have stone cutter, spinners, tinsmith. We have a textile demo. We have a weapons demo. We have a colonial printer.
You thought of everything.
And we have a powder horn engraver.
Okay.
Okay. So there'll be lots to do after this ceremony at the ancient cemetery.
And then I mentioned the monument. So can you tell me about this monument? Because I know a lot of time and effort has gone into the planning of this. So give us a little insight into that.
Okay. So first and foremost, we selected a man named Robert Schuer, who is a world-renowned sculptor.
Yeah.
And he's done a fantastic job. This monument is truly Yarmouth.
Yeah.
The sculpture on the top depicts a militiaman looking out with a rifle over his back, holding his baby, with his wife by his side, and a plow at his feet, which pretty much denotes that he's looking to the future of everything, and the wife has got to pick up the pieces on the home front. And so...
Exactly what we talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a terrific day, and it's so interesting, and I know I definitely learned something. Before we wrap up, what is there one thing that you want residents to get from this experience when they come? What's your one goal for that?
I think people are not into historical things these days.
Yeah.
And I think that this experience will immerse somebody into the period that it was meant to be, and especially children. Like, I know that there was a brownie troop that helped clean stones at the ancient cemetery.
And they probably learned a lot.
But on the 300th anniversary, they'll be like 60 and 70 and sick.
Oh, wow. Now I feel really old. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that I learned something, and I'm sure everyone that's listening definitely learned something. And just if you want to attend on June 20th from 10 to 3 at Fred Thatcher's Park, it's going to be the Legacy of Liberty celebration. We really hope that you join Yarmouth in this big day. And as always, don't forget to follow us on our website, our social media platforms, our YouTube channel, Channel 8, and you can find this podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Hopefully we see you on June 20th, Yarmouth.